Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your Rant Line, Rave Line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Can I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there?
Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it, what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that Rave Line! Woohoo! Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 575, coming to you on Wednesday, November 20th. We're going to preview USC and UCLA, the city championship, the battle for the victory bell. It's Troy week, all of that, as USC looks to go bowl eligible and get their sixth win of the season at the Rose Bowl, 7:30 p.m. on WNBC, or KNBC, too. Anyways, we're going to preview the game. We're going to bring on our good friend Jake Merrifield from the West Bruins Show. We have a long chat with him about the Bruins to get you in the know on what to expect from them, and so much more here on this episode. As always, you can follow us on Blue Sky at Rant of Troy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rant of Troy, email address, rantoftroy@fanside.com, and our phone number, 818-643-7227, second West Bruins Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Rant of Troy studio in Los Angeles, across the room from me, Lisa D'Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We are back. It is rivalry week, number 1, as Kenny says in the chat. Yeah, there's 2 back to back.
Yeah, I love it when the season ends like this. I like the Notre Dame home split, where you usually get UCLA and Notre Dame back to back, instead of the Notre Dame away, where you get the Notre Dame game earlier. It creates a fun end to the season. Even a negative season, quote unquote negative season like this, where you don't have a lot to play for, ending the season with 2 games where it doesn't matter what you're playing for something big. It just so happens that USC is playing for bowl eligibility over this week, and
that's huge.
Potentially next week, which is huge. But even if USC had lost to Nebraska and bowl thoughts were gone and all that kind of stuff, like, this would still be a big couple of weeks for USC to go out and see if they can win their rivalry games and end the season on a positive. Yeah,
Alicia, it does not get bigger than bowl eligibility. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no bigger game in college football than Saturday night at the Rose Bowl. Bowl eligibility on the line. USC wins. They eliminate UCLA from a bowl chance, and they clinch their own bowl ticket. Like, it doesn't get bigger than that. Like, that is the biggest stage in college football. I think it's easy to say that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Either way,
I feel like you're putting something down for me to pick up, and I'm not getting it.
It's called sarcasm, but it's okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. All right. Before we get into the game, Alicia, there is some, this is a game, like we mentioned. SC is 5-5. The Bruins are 4-6, coached by Deshaun Foster in their first season. They beat SC with Danton Lynn as their defensive coordinator a year ago, 38-20. This is a UCLA team that's, of course, not ranked. They're 65th in FEI, 61st in Jeff Sagarin, very close to where Maryland is, and maybe not geographically, but analytically they are. And we know that the Trojans lost to the Terps. So this is going to be a game in which the Trojans have to prove that they can win a Big Ten road game, even though one that's 15 road miles game north. But Alicia, before we really start talking about the SC-UCLA game, I think we have to talk about the flu bug. From already in the chat says hopefully the flu bug goes away. Alicia, it is ripe, rearing and roaring and all of that stuff over on campus right now. The offense was hit hard before the Nebraska game. It's traveled through the team. Lincoln Riley apparently was sick a little bit earlier today. Ryan Karchi tweeted that he sounded a little bit under the weather. Woody Marks, of course, had a flu game on Saturday, and it was the most yards from scrimmage he's ever had against an FBS opponent. So clearly, there's like Michael Jordan and then immediately Woody Marks as people who have, competed while sick. And then right behind that, Noah Lyles, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Woody Marks is just, his feats continue to grow in legend. But, the flu stuff, it always, every few years, if not every year, there seems to be some sort of illness that breaks out among teams. That's just the nature of having human beings in close proximity to each other. So it is, it is what it is. And Lincoln Riley said that basically there's no excuses. Luckily, it seemed that the worst of it, because it had gone through the team starting before Nebraska, that the worst of it is probably going to have passed by the time they get to Saturday. You just have to hope that the disruptions to practice or preparation weren't too significant going into this with players and coaches feeling unwell. So hopefully that all gets cleared up. In true rivalry fashion, I would also like to point out that I don't know, I have not heard these quotes in their actual audio form with intonation and all that kind of stuff. But every quote that seems to be coming out from Deshaun Foster, USC, just feels very rivalry-ish.
Sure.
Like poking the bear. Because Ben Bolch asked, or somebody at UCLA, and Ben Bolch reported it, that were asked if UCLA was having any issues with flu bugs going through the team as well. And Deshaun Foster said, "We did have that, but we don't make excuses. It's just let's go." And again, that could be completely innocuous.
It feels innocuous to me.
But it could also be like, we had that, but like we don't make excuses.
Sure.
So I don't know. And then, I mean, earlier in the week, he said that it was asked about how the UCLA and USC rivalry impacts like the city of LA. And he said a lot of families, the smarter ones usually come over here and the other ones go to the other school and then the family is torn. So had a lot of USC fans pointing out like college rankings and enrollment and acceptance rates and all that kind of stuff with regard to that. But he's poking the bear. I from a USC perspective, I'd rather have them talking than USC.
I think it's easier for him to say these things when he played in the rivalry, obviously. Although not in, I believe he did not play in 2001 when SC beat them 27-0. Because wasn't he suspended that game for illegal benefits?
I don't remember.
Am I misremembering that?
I have no memory of it.
He at least missed like some time that season, but that's neither here nor there. No, I think that these things are silly, stupid rivalry things. That's why we love rivalries. At the same time, this is sort of on par with the how do you get a Bruin off your porch? You pay for the pizza, like those kind of dumb, lame, like jokes kind of stuff. Like I think we need to get more creative. From both sides here, you know what I mean? Like, I think the interesting story is like, I think this would be a great quote from Deshaun Foster if it just said, a lot of family, like you just trim this down. A lot of families, one usually comes over here and the other goes to the other school and then the family is torn. I think we'd all like, Yeah, a
lot of split households. Yeah. Really easy.
My dad, USC season ticket holder. My uncle, UCLA season ticket holder. Mm-hmm. So
the split, a lot of houses divided. Certainly in Los Angeles and Southern California. Yeah. For the record, he was suspended for the USC UCLA game in 2001 because he was suspended at the beginning of November for the final 3 games of the season.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So he didn't play as many rivalry games as I would have thought. Anyone would have thought. Yeah. SC won that game 27-0. Antoine Simmons with the greatest pick six I've ever seen in my life. The greatest pick six that you've probably seen in your life if you're listening to this. And if you haven't, Google it. Antoine Simmons pick six USC UCLA 2001.
I don't know. When I think of pick sixes in USC, I think of Nickel Roby, but that's me.
That was beautiful. Yes. The Antoine Simmons one against UCLA was like Sports Center Play of the Year. It's where he goes between his legs, catches it like right underneath his balls. Like, it's incredible. I've showed you this,
I know
right?
I've seen it. Yes, I'm currently looking it up on.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, I've definitely seen this. Yeah. This is literally a Sports Center video that I'm currently watching for those at home.
It was the most
where it
recent...
sort of like kicks up off of is it off the other guy's foot or something like that, and then he does the like whatever we're calling this celebration on the way in the end zone.
The Neon Dion a little bit. Yeah. It was a great moment in USC history. I believe Antoine Simmons played for the LA Avengers too. By the way. Great Trojan.
Local.
Yeah, great Trojan. Anyways, let's talk about SC and UCLA. We talked about the Bruins, not ranked, obviously 4-6. 3 Big Ten wins. That's great for them, right? Like they've been, I think, better than expected in the Big Ten because in part they won 3 games in a row. After starting the season 1-5,
there was a worry they could go through the season with only 1 win at a certain point. There was no guarantee that they would get wins over Rutgers, Nebraska, or Iowa. I mean, especially early in the season, I think we expected Iowa to be better than they are. Mm-hmm. And going to Rutgers and to Nebraska, that's not easy.
Yeah.
They've overachieved in the last month or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But we want to learn more about the Bruins, so let's bring in our friend Jake Merrifield. Alicia, you're going to have to get up, and we'll bring Jake in for this. So let's get to that. All right, joining us here in the Rant studio in Los Angeles is our good pal, Jake Merrifield from the What's Bruins Show. What's up, Jake?
It is I. Hello. Thank you for having me.
You are here in the flesh.
In the RoT Studios.
Yeah.
I always love to be here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places.
What's it feel like, sort of cosplaying as
This
Alicia?
is my first time in the Penguins chair, and I'm looking at Post-it notes that say things like run the ball and college football cross-examination or something and take out the trash. So I think that one's supposed to be on your side, but otherwise it's good.
I think that's on the correct side over there. But Jake, a lot of stuff to talk about SC and UCLA.
Go Bruins.
City championship game coming up on Saturday night, 7:30. Thoughts on a 7:30 kickoff?
I hate it. It's a freaking tragedy for the city. I think that anytime they're going to put us on a 7:30 at night, whether it's the Rose Bowl or at the Collie, you're wasting the wonderful views from the place in the sunshine. You're missing out on the great weather. Right now it's going to rain anyway, or maybe not. But and then we're all going to be there so damn late. I hate it. As someone who likes to go to the game, I don't want to be there at midnight. And now that they've taken away all the, they made the college game have less plays, but take up more time with commercials. I'm going to see that stupid a-hole with the little spinny, digital clock on the corner of the field. I hate that guy. He's my least favorite guy in football. So I'm not happy about the 7:30 start. What?
One of the best inventions is that clock.
Oh my God. I do like how he spins it, but I hate the clock. And I hate how no matter what, like it's always at like 3 minutes. Like, oh, we just punted. Oh, 3 more minutes. Oh, guess what? Kickoff. 3 more minutes. Oh, 4th down. 3 more minutes. I hate it.
The worst is touchdown, TV timeout.
Yes.
Kickoff, TV timeout.
I could not agree more. It is so frustrating. And it's something like modern college football is that's what it is now. Yeah. So
yeah, absolute hell. But let's talk about the Bruins.
Go Bruins.
Bruins are 4-6 going into the last 2 games. You got to win both of them against your California rivals, of course.
No. Don't pull that crap with me, pal. You leave the Bulldogs out of this. They are, they're like the wildlings from freaking Game of Thrones. Like not rivals, they're just up there. And every once in a while they come down to Southern California and cause, SC or UCLA problems, but they're very unruly. Tough crowd, and no. If it was the Bears, I'd say Cal's our northern rival, not freaking the Bulldogs.
Here's a question.
So I'm not gonna let you get away with crap today, Michael.
No, that's fine. Question,
watch yourself.
Really quick before we get into SC-UCLA, since we've been rambling here. UCLA Fresno State. Who has more fans at the game?
You're just a dick.
No, genuinely, because Fresno State travels incredibly well.
I know, and they bark at you, and they get very mean. It depends. It entirely depends on the SC game.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because that kickoff is at 12:30. So there's a chance for a pretty decent turnout for a nice finale of the season with bowl eligibility on the line if they manage to beat the Trojans. If not, like it will, there literally it will be a sea of red Fresno State dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And green V's everywhere. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. Let's talk about the Bruins coming into this game 4-6, ahead of the Trojans in the Big Ten
That's
standings. Right. Where do you stand?
Looking down those Big Ten standings, down at those dirty rotten Trojans.
Where do you stand on this UCLA team? You look at the numbers. The Bruins are 65th in FEI, 61st in offense, 70th defense, 54th special team. So it's a pretty even distribution there in terms of what the metrics are saying. Does that match the eye test to you, 65th?
This is going to be completely lost on you, but not on your wonderful wife, Penguin and Troy.
Sure.
Don't tell me the odds. Okay, in the mortal words of Han Solo, don't tell me the odds, because this is a weird UCLA team in that they are the team that was absolutely dreadful, unplayable on offense in the first 5 games of the season, and also against some pretty tough opponents. And then the last 5 games where they have been competent, not good, competent on offense and pretty darn good on defense. And so I think you have to look at the season for the Bruins in those 2 halves. And this second half Bruin team, I would, against the Trojans, against the Bulldogs, against anybody down this back half of the schedule, I'd give them a good shot at, and they've played pretty well the last 3 games or 4 games, even though they lost the game against Washington. Like, I think they lost that more than the Dogs beat them.
Yeah, you look at UCLA in those games that you mentioned, 3-game winning streak: Rutgers, Nebraska,
Huzzah.
Iowa.
Yeah.
The Iowa game at home on a late Friday night for the Hawkeyes, but
that was a fun game.
I think that those are 3 good wins for the Bruins, right? Because
absolutely,
no game is easy in the Big Ten, and especially if you're a team that was probably going to be in the bottom third projected going into the season. Those are the teams that you want to be ahead of, right? Rutgers, Nebraska.
And you said they were unexpected. Like, each one of those wins was more unexpected than the previous one, because it was
sure.
At Rutgers, but the hardest part of at Rutgers is just the at part. I think I think everybody, had only won 1 game up to that point, everybody thought there was a chance for them to beat Rutgers just based on how Rutgers was playing, right? And it's Rutgers. I know Shiano's a champion, but give me a break. And then the at Nebraska looked like it was going to be butt kicking for them based on all the factors going into it. And then they played a really good game against Nebraska and ended up getting a win. And then the Iowa game, even though it was at the Rose Bowl, and Iowa's been less than great on the road, I want to say, but nobody expected the Bruins to beat Iowa like that. So that 3-game stretch ending in the Iowa, the high point, before they had to go on the road to Washington, it completely, I don't use 180 or a Jason Kidd 360 lightly, but this is the biggest flip on a season, perception wise, I can remember for the Bruins in a long time. And it's not like we're like, oh my God, this is a great team, but it's like they went from being one of the worst teams that we've ever watched to okay, these guys I can root for. I can cheer for these guys. I like these guys. Yeah.
Went from 1-5 to 4-5 in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Salvaged the run potentially at bowl eligibility. Obviously they got to beat SC and Fresno State, but let's talk about the
ironically
offense.
Though, not very good at running the ball. So,
all right, well, that leads us perfectly into it. Talk about the offense. Ethan Garbers at quarterback. You and I were talking before we started recording. You like Ethan Garbers.
I do.
Not necessarily a Brett Hundley or DTR level guy, but he's way above your Kevin Crafts, Kevin Prince,
absolutely,
Richard Brehos of the world, right?
This may be I know there are people who disagree with me vehemently on this, but Ethan Garbers, if you throw out the best quarterbacks of the Bruins of this millennia, you're talking about we said DTR, Hundley, then DTR, then Josh Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
I think Garbers is right there with Drew Olson as far as the better quarterbacks the Bruins have had. And by the way, it's not a very good list after that, but he's absolutely decent to good. And I think if you give him a good game plan and you give him any bit of protection, he doesn't need a lot. He doesn't need great protection. He just needs a bit of protection. And I think he can make some good plays. He can be turnover prone at points, but I'm just telling, your fans, don't look at any of the games the Bruin offense played up until the Penn State game, through the Penn State game, and like judge the UCLA offense by that, because they are a completely different team and they completely changed the way they were approaching games after, or kind of in the middle of Penn State.
In what way?
Well, early on in the season, they were, and by the way, this is all Eric Bieniemy's offense that he came in here with, that he tried to throw out there, and they were trying to throw the ball too deep, too often. They weren't really trying to run the ball hardly at all. They weren't really trying to exploit any of the edges of the field at all. Kind of like the inverse of a Lincoln Riley, I think, in that regard. Yeah. And Garbers would just drop back there on a 5-7 step drop or whatever, and he'd get murdered every time because they couldn't protect him long enough to complete the plays down the field that he wanted to try to make, and it was just a disaster. And they were averaging 13 points a game, and absolutely just is some of the worst offense I think we've ever seen as UCLA fans. And then Garbers was hurt during Penn State, and we put our newish guy Justin Martin out there, and he didn't play great, but he didn't play bad either. But they completely changed the game plan to try to exploit the field a little bit horizontally before taking it vertical, and just everything got better from there. And so, like, since Garbers has come back, the last 4 or 5 games or whatever since the Penn State game, his passing percentage went up by 20 points. He's taken a lot fewer shots downfield, but the shots he takes downfield are way more effective. And their play action has been way more effective, even though they've only been able to run the ball in 1 game total. Yeah. They're just a lot more effective with their deep shots now, because they're doing a lot more close to the line of scrimmage before they try it, or to try to offset it. And at one point, Garbers was, I'm pulling this out of my rear end a little bit, but at one point he was 48 for 48 on plays behind the line of scrimmage and within 10 yards or something. He was at a very high percentage, let's put it that way. And that was dramatically completely different than the first half of the season. Yeah, it
sounds to me like they just made it easier on him and
absolutely
played to his strengths. Yeah. Look at the numbers; it bears it out. First month of the season, he completed 56.6% of his passes, passer rating of $111.2. In October, 76%.
Yeah.
6 touchdowns, 3 picks, complete inverse of the first month, with the rating of 157.32. So that absolutely shows that uptick there. You talked about the running game not being good. Bruins are led by TJ Harden. At running back.
In one game, they were led by TJ Harden. The entire rest of the season, their running game has been led by Ethan Garbers, because he's a scrappy sort of make a play kind of guy.
Sure.
He's not explosive like DTR was, but he definitely is an efficient runner. And so, yeah, Michael, I wanted to cut you off there, because that's what's been weird about the season, is that there's been one game where the running backs led the rushing attack. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it's been a lot of running right into the line of scrimmage and just, bouncing off.
Yeah. Harden and Jalen Berger averaging
a tasty burger.
3.62 and 3.71 yards per carry. Not great. Not great at all. Keegan Jones a little bit higher than that, but obviously fewer carries for him. I think for SC that's going to be music to their ears, right? Denton Lynn wants to stop the run and rely on the secondary to make plays. And I think it's going to be an interesting matchup that way. Let's talk about the defense.
Michael,
for the Bruins.
I want to stop you real quick.
Sure.
And I just want to say, I think it's really important if the Bruins are getting 2 to 3 yards on their, on a lot of their rushes. Mm-hmm. I think that's just fine for what Eric Bieniemy wants, because it's going to allow them still to have to honor play action stuff down the field. If they're just getting stoned at the line, then I think that's what Lynn wants. But I don't think the Bruins have to run the ball for a big average or for a lot of yards to win this game against the Trojans, if that makes any sense. It's got to be an absolute total catastrophic failure for to derail the modest things the UCLA offense wants to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. As long as you're not having negative plays, you're at least keeping things alive a little bit in that sense.
Definitely.
Let's talk about the defense, because you had a take about this defense. You came over, you brought a Costco pizza with you.
I did.
We ate pizza and talked pre-pod about some stuff.
Michael doesn't like pepperoni.
To be fair, I've been eating pepperoni lately.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But it doesn't make a pizza better. And it is still a little bit on the spicy side. But you said
I'm sorry.
You were quoted about this UCLA defense by saying this.
hot damn, that defense.
That's how I feel about them the last 5 games.
Of the two sides of the ball for each team.
Yes.
Offense, defense for each team.
Yes.
You said that UCLA's defense, you thought, was
my hot take.
The best side of the ball of either SC or UCLA.
I believe it. I do.
Okay. I want to hear why, because I've got rankings for you. 133rd in down percent.
That all year.
You look at yards allowed through the air, 16th in the Big Ten, 101 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 101st in the country there. Red zone defense, they're 17th in the Big Ten, 122nd in the country. Why? Why do you feel like this is the case with UCLA's defense?
I think
why do these numbers not matter enough to alter your perception?
You may not agree with my overall take, Michael, and that's okay. However,
Sure.
I think you will absolutely understand my logic in the poorly inflated stats for the UCLA defense. And that lies to a large degree in when the offense, especially for the first 6 games, was so bad and dreadful that the defense was put into really bad positions. And I'm saying, having to take the ball, on their side of the field, off of bad turnovers and things like that. They really weren't a very good defense at recovering from that sort of adversity, like kind of the first half of the season especially. They've been better at it in the last few games. So a lot of the inflated stats from early in the season come from that just right off the bat. Secondly, just when you look at this defense, it's kind of like the UCLA offense to a degree in that they had a worse first half than they have had the last 4 or 5 games. And something that has dramatically turned for this defense is they were generating 0 pressure through the Penn State game, I want to say. And since then, we're talking, Minnesota, Rutgers, Nebraska, Iowa, and Washington. They have been much, much better at generating pressure, and it's not all through having to blitz everybody all the time. Now they do blitz quite a bit, and they try. It's kind of just like D'Anton Lynn did with the Bruins last year, and probably what he's doing with the Trojans this year. They'll blitz them, and it'll come from different angles and all that stuff, and they'll try to utilize all the players to give them all a chance to make plays. But the Bruin front 7, especially for the last 5 games, has been playing angry freaking football. And they have a lot of playmakers right now that are making plays, so guys like Kay Madrado, guys like Femi Oladejo, who he was kind of started the season as like a middle linebacker and has gradually made his way to being kind of an edge guy, but they'll move him around. He is making huge plays for the Bruins. Like I said, Madrano, and then in Schlesinger, we have like the best linebacker in the country somehow. This guy, and I'm, they joke that now he's the walk-on Carson Schlesinger. That's been the gloss because that's whatever he brings up every time he gets mentioned. But this dude, now his nickname is freaking Captain America. Like he just runs around the field making tackles all freaking game. And I mentioned all these guys, and I even mentioned the most important guy, and that is former Trojan Jay Toya. He is absolutely wrecking shop on the inside, and he was doing well in the beginning of the season, but the last 4 or 5 games, he is absolutely just a beast. And for those reasons, I just think they have guys that are playing at their peak, and they're making plays, and they're playing much better than they were earlier in the year. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. Yeah,
that makes sense. I think that my understanding of UCLA so far this year is a team that is they're not a great team.
No.
I don't think anyone is arguing that. Neither is SC, but they are a team that is difficult to play because you look at what UCLA has sort of done so far this year. They got jiggle-bagged by Indiana, but Indiana's done that to literally everybody.
It was
right?
surprised when it happened, but in hindsight, it's like, okay, I can accept that.
It's not. Yeah.
That is nowhere near my worst loss of the season for the Bruins. Like that Indiana they're crazy. They're crazy good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Oregon beat you pretty bad, but you hold them to 34 points, all things considered. Not terrible. Penn State only scores 27 at home against you guys.
And they didn't play well in any of those games we're talking about, right? These are all the games where they were like playing pretty terrible. The best half they played, the first half of the season, was the half I was at in Baton Rouge when they tied the Tigers going into the half, and then they just imploded after that.
Yeah,
but they played like one half of a good football game against Hawaii, which has to be adjusted for how bad Hawaii is, and they played one half of good football against LSU for the first 6 games of the season. That was it. The rest of it was a real big struggle.
Yeah, I guess my point here is UCLA's been handled by Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State.
Yeah.
But those are 3 playoff teams. Those are 3 teams that should be handling a team of UCLA stature. But everybody else, you've been in scraps with and been a real pain-in-the-ass team to play, right? And when you look at the Trojans, especially on the road, Minnesota, Maryland, Washington, I think those 3 teams, if nothing else, would all be labeled as pain-in-the-ass teams to play, especially Washington and Minnesota, but not great teams. And SC lost to all 3 of those, and 3 games that you could argue they woulda, coulda, shoulda won in different ways. But I guess what I'm saying is this just seems like the perfect team to be the next team in line to give SC hell on the road.
Sounds good to me.
So what's the bellwether for you? Like, what is the bellwether for whether or not this game goes in UCLA's favor? We'll save your prediction for the What's Bruins show. You can hear us over the What's Bruins show. Alicia and I will be there. We're recording that later today, by the way, by the time you hear this. Yeah. And so head over there to listen to predictions there. But even without predictions, do the Kirk Herbstreit thing when he has to not predict the game that he calls.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this right now. I think there's a huge thing for me as I'm watching the game. I'll either be, getting more and more optimistic as it goes, or just being like, okay, we're done. Just turn off TV or let's go home. Yeah. And that is, can UCLA turn in a good first half? Because if they don't have a good first half, I don't think there's much chance of them having a good second half. They have not been finishers all year long. I know that's been a little bit of an issue for SC too, but for UCLA, I think it's been even more of a problem. They really played well on the 3-game winning streak in the first half, got a lead to some degree in every one of those games, and really were dominating through about 2.5, 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter just kind of lost a little bit, and each one of those, the games got closer than they needed to be in games where they really played much better than all 3 of those opponents. And against Washington, they left 15 points on the field in the first half, at least. And that really cost them because they had that game at 14-13 in the third quarter, and then they kind of lost control of it at that point after missing a field goal. So I think it's really important they play well early, get a good start, or at least not an absolute tragic start like they had against Indiana or Oregon or whatever. And if they don't get a good start, then I'll be very pessimistic going into the second half of the game.
Yeah, I think that checks out. And you mentioned SC's ability to finish in the second half hasn't been as critical as UCLA's. It's interesting because SC's issues in the second half have been the problem, but it's more so it's the problem on the last drive or two.
Right.
It's not that SC is, getting blown out in the second half of these games. That's not the issue. The issue is the last drive or two.
Yeah.
And given the way SC has played the games, I think we can expect probably a close game on Saturday. So
same with the Bruins.
Yeah. So we'll see how it comes down at 11 o'clock in the fourth quarter at the Rose Bowl.
So stupid.
SC's won the last 2 there. Late in games, so we'll see if they have that going their way.
I still am smarting over that DTR pick. Man, game was right there.
It's
total
the
bummer.
Greatest moment ever in the history of
Yeah, you lost it there, buddy. Can't think of it.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head right off of whim in the moment. Is prime example for my point there. So, all right, we will jump back into the rest of the show, but head over to the What's Bruins show and listen to Alicia and I over there talk more SC UCLA. And until then, you want to tell people when they can find you?
If they want to, at WBJake68 is my Twitter handle, but really at What's Bruins show is where I tweet most of the time. Okay. And hopefully my commie partner isn't doing a bunch of stuff that's ridiculous on there. But hi, Penguin. I miss you. I'll see you tomorrow. or today
We're
or
going
whatever
to do
it is.
some magic of TV.
Here we go.
We're going to turn you into.
I want like a graphic where I like.
Alicia.
Could you do like a Star Trek transporter beam or something?
I don't know if we could get that crazy.
That'd be pretty cool.
Let's turn you back into Alicia,
All
right?
Wonderful.
Now, that crazy.
That'd be pretty cool.
Let's turn you back into Alicia,
All
right?
Wonderful.
Now, Alicia, welcome. You are back.
Hi, Jake.
Yeah.
Thanks for the hello, Michael. I cannot believe you forgot Corey Foreman.
Who could forget
It's Corey Foreman?
Yeah, I know. Who could forget?
Who could forget? You,
big,
apparently.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Big thanks to Jake for coming on the pod, as always. Kenny in the chat says, I know this is technically a road game, but it feels like less of a road game than LSU was. Yes, I completely agree. I think the interesting thing that we're going to learn, I don't know that we'll completely learn this, but like I feel like we should at least get some data on this, is figuring out whether SC's issues is with traveling or is it playing on the road? Like, do you see the difference in
Yes.
what I'm saying there?
Yes, 100%.
Like, is the UCLA game technically is a road game, right? But like, if it's not a game where SC plays poorly, like they not necessarily that. Here's the issue too. Like SC hasn't played poorly in any game, in a overall sense. It's that they play significantly better at home, right?
Yes.
It's not like they've never been blown out in any of these games. They played well enough to win all of them. You know what I mean? Like, but they obviously didn't play nearly as well at Maryland as they did against Rutgers at home, right? Or against Wisconsin at home, or against Nebraska at home. So I guess we'll learn if the issue is like, does SC play like they do at the Coliseum at UCLA? Because if they do, I think that we can say, okay, SC's issues are more about traveling. If they play the exact same way that they did at Maryland, at UW, then I say, okay, the issue is they just play better at the Coliseum itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's could be the air travel that unsettles them.
Yeah.
Different schedules. I think that the schedule for this game would more or less be the same as it would be for any other home game. Obviously, you're going to the Rose Bowl, so different lack of familiarity with the venue, with the field, whatever it is. We got to figure out what it is. I think that my hope would be that we see the same USC that has played at home in this game, obviously. But even if we see a team that's playing a little bit more like they did on the road, it's not like USC got blown out on the road anywhere. Like,
right.
You know, I think you're still within range of winning. So
if SC plays like they did against Maryland, it's not like they can't win this game.
Yeah,
like,
but they can certainly lose it. So
right, exactly. You know. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes to be. Jake talked a lot about the Bruins, obviously, with his insight of covering them and being an alum and being the smarter of his family to go there. Certainly.
Okay, Deshaun Foster.
No, but like, what are your thoughts about UCLA and the matchup in general?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think, as Jake laid out, this team, it's really hard to gauge from their season. They looked very bad early in the season, but then again, you look at the schedule that they played earlier in the season, and most teams would look bad early in the season. I think do you find it on FEI if you can go look it up? An average team would have what record? We've said that for USC, an average team would be 3-7, right?
Yeah.
What is the average team on UCLA's record?
Let's look that up.
While you're looking that up, I'll say that so it's hard to say, have they gotten better? Have they gotten considerably better to the point where they could go on the road and beat Nebraska and Rutgers, and also take care of Iowa at home? And play Washington tough until, a Washington team that is quite good at home, play them tough until they let it sort of get away from them at the end. Is that them getting better, or is that the schedule getting easier? It's probably a little bit of both. but this is a team that, I looked at their offense and it's like, well, what do they do well? Just like, well, not much. Like, they've gotten better in the run game. They're up to 134 yards per game in November, which is significantly better than what they were doing before. I have a lot of respect for Ethan Garbers. I think he's a capable quarterback. Certainly, I would say Ethan Garbers is in the same category of quarterback in the Big Ten as some of the passers that have beaten USC this year. If we're talking, the Max Brosmer and Billy Edwards and like those guys, like he's at least as good as them, if not better. I mean, I just looked up, passer rating. He's right around. He's right between Billy Edwards, Max Brosmer, and Miller Moss. So, above Aiden Childs and Dylan Raiola and Braden Locke, way above Braden Locke and the like. So, I think their passing game I think they have some potential to be pretty decent, but there's also not much that, like, there's no one that jumps out to you really as the big time danger man. So like TJ Harden is one of the best receiving running backs in the country. He's actually number 1 in Big Ten and number 6 nationally in terms of Pro Football Focus's like receiving grade for running backs. But he's got 384 yards rushing, 3.62 yards per carry. It doesn't exactly strike fear into your heart.
Right.
Logan Loya, we know he was the leading receiver for UCLA last year against USC. We know that he can do damage, but again, he's 26 catches, 299 yards, 4 touchdowns, like not striking a lot of fear into your heart. It's their offensive line gives up quite a bit of pressure. Can do some run blocking coming off the right, but give up a lot of pressure. But then you're going against a USC team that doesn't get enough pressure and all of these things. So it's like,
right.
I don't have a good sense of if UCLA's offense gets the best of USC's defense. I can't predict where that comes from. Like when USC plays Dylan Raiola and you say, well, Dylan Raiola might not be great, but you can see where he can do damage to you. Like you look at the running back and you think like, oh yeah, he's going to be tough. We've seen other matchups in the past where it's like, okay, these guys are the guys who, if they win, it's because these guys are going to step up and do some interesting things. Who's that guy for UCLA? I'm having a hard time really identifying that. I don't know if you have someone.
No, I think TJ Harden's a good pull there. Just looking at the numbers in the Big Ten, he's the third, the number 3 running back in terms of pass catches. Darius Taylor has 45, Woody Marks 43, TJ Harden 35. But of those, he has the highest yards per catch. So, I think that checks out when you look at the grades there that you were talking about earlier. But talking about the schedule, to go back to UCLA's schedule.
Yeah.
So according to the FEI ratings, their ALS, which again, not the disease, is the number of losses an average team would expect to have against their schedule. Okay. So SC's, for context, is the 7th highest in the country at 7.13. So the most average team in the country so far would have 7.13 losses. So the average team, in that sense, we can assume would be 3-7, right?
Yeah.
For UCLA, the average team through this point in the season would have 7.85 losses. The number 1 highest mark there in the country. So 7.85. I think we just round to 8. So the average team with against UCLA's opponents is 2-8.
Yeah,
they're 4-6. Not that there's a huge difference there, but it's higher than Georgia, and I think that Georgia has the toughest schedule in the country.
I would have guessed Georgia was number one.
Georgia's number 3. Florida's number 2. So,
well, I think if you're looking just at the numbers, you would expect teams to lose those games against Rutgers and Nebraska.
Yeah.
And Iowa it's a good win at home, beating Iowa in any year. Iowa may not be great this year, but the core that Iowa has. I was looking up offensive line numbers in the Big Ten, trying to sort of compare on Pro Football Focus. Give context to the stuff that I was saying about UCLA's offensive line, which, by the way, just isn't that great. Not that USC's is, by the way, but USC at least has a couple of guys who rate ahead of the best guy on UCLA's board. But I was sort of sorting by the Big Ten, and like 4 of the top 5 offensive line graded players on PFF, which, take it for what it's worth, is PFF, but 4 of the top 5 were Iowa. So it's like, Iowa is always going to have a certain amount of strength that's going to make them difficult to beat in any context. But UCLA is overperforming the difficulty level of their schedule. So but it does come down to, what does that mean in reality when you're facing a team like USC? It doesn't necessarily mean a ton.
Yeah, well, because we know that SC it's a weird thing because the average team would have more losses than SC does right now.
Yeah,
but SC's not an average team. Yeah, SC isn't what you would expect an average team to be.
Doesn't aspire to be an average team.
Yeah, an average team is a team that's ranked like 100 and not 100, but like 65th in the country.
Yeah, like an average team. I don't have FEI up directly in front of me, but like an average team would be something like somewhere between Arizona at 4-6 and Miami or Navy at 7-4, 7-3, like somewhere in that range.
The middle of the road is 67th. There's 134 teams.
The 9-2 Memphis Tigers, baby.
There's 69. Yeah. Nice. No, but Virginia is 5-5, and they're 67th in FEI. Like, I think they're right there. Also, UCLA is 65th. So like they're
so in that range.
Yeah, they're not too.
The way that I feel about it is this: we have seen USC's defense be rather capable.
Yeah.
Obviously, still have their limitations. Obviously, need to rush the passer better. All of those things. But we did see them limit a Nebraska offense that has been kind of weird, but still has some potential to. What did we say? 10 points in realistically 10 points.
Right.
So this UCLA offense, like, there's no reason USC couldn't do the same to this UCLA offense. This UCLA offense is, their season high for scoring is 35 points. They're averaging 18.8 points per game.
Yeah, I think this is where, like, we're going to get into score predictions in a minute, right? But, like, when we get into over-under. But before we get there, I think that this is a game where, gun to my head, this game is at a neutral field. It's in that indoor practice facility that you can play with free practice on NCAA, right? Like, it's in that place, right?
Yeah.
The game is played inside the Olympics somehow. They converted it from a church again, and they put a football field in there. SC, I think, should win this game like 31-21. 31-20. Something like that, right? And my issue there becomes, can SC play to their expectations on the road? Because they haven't necessarily done that, right? The only game I think that you could say maybe they did that was Michigan, but again, they were 6-point favorites and lost at Michigan. So did they really? Probably not, right? Like, and in hindsight, Michigan isn't nearly as good of a team as we thought that they could be at that time, right? So yeah, if they can play how they are supposed to, if this game's at the Coliseum, it's a game that they should win 31-20. But what does that mean at the Rose Bowl? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. And
predictions in a minute. But I guess my other thing is, even if SC is bad in this game, bad in the sense of like they play like they did against Maryland, which again, good enough to win the game, bad enough to potentially lose it like they did, right? But like in that scenario, I don't know that I completely trust UCLA's offense to score enough points, because UCLA's offense, if you just allot them the 20 points that SC allows, then plus a field goal, 23, even if you want to go plus a touchdown, 27, right? Can they hold SC to under 27? Well, I think yes. I think the answer is yes, but like reliably?
And this is where it comes down to, I think we're going to talk in over-under a little bit about like the turnover question. But UCLA's defense, I think UCLA's defense is obviously the better unit of the two. Disregard the fact that on the season they're giving up 27 points per game. That's heavily weighted to the front end of their season against teams like LSU and Oregon in Indiana, which, by the way, like holding Oregon to 34 points at odds is relatively admirable when it comes to when you look at like what
their scoring defense is not a problem.
Yeah, and especially more recently, they have been winning games because their defense has been giving the offense sort of opportunity to win. Having said that, when I'm giving them some credit, it's credit that is like, this is a better defense than 27 points per game. But they're also not I think that they are like closer to a 20-point defense right now against sort of your average team. And the big difference is that USC's offense should be able to get one up on them at least. Where I struggle with this matchup
compared to UCLA's offense against SC's defense.
Yes, 100%. Exactly.
Like I think the matchup is better for SC going up against their defense than it is for SC going up against
their offense going against USC's defense.
Right.
Yes. The problem now here is that when you look at some of the strengths of this defense, you go immediately to their secondary, where Kalen Moore and Devin Kirkwood and Brian Addison and those guys are being ball hawkish in the secondary. They're picking passes off.
6 in the last 3 games.
Yes, and that is the danger area for USC now that Jaden Mayava, I mean, all season that's been a danger area, but this is a discussion we continue to have with Jaden Mayava is, can he protect the football while also being the playmaking Jaden Mayava that makes, the wow plays?
Yeah.
There has to be a balance there. And in any given game, because we just don't have a good enough sample size, we don't know which version of that, which side of that line he's going to be on, right? And UCLA is a team that could take advantage of his recklessness if it is there. If it's first half against Nebraska, UCLA will be there to get those picks. If it's second half of Nebraska, then USC's reasonably going to be fine. But this UCLA defense is also pretty decent against the run. They've got Jay Toya, a familiar face, plugging up the middle. And they've got linebackers and such that are getting home, certainly far more often than USC's linebackers or defensive linemen are creating havoc plays in the backfield. So there are areas where it feels like UCLA, even though I think USC's offense should have an edge over this UCLA defense, I can, unlike with the offense where I can't tell you exactly where UCLA beats USC's defense, when I look at the matchup going the other way, I can tell you exactly where UCLA's defense could have an advantage over USC's offense if USC's offense plays into UCLA's defense's strengths, which is number one, creating havoc in the backfield, which then creates opportunities for the guys in the secondary to pick off passes. And if that's what happens, then that's going to give UCLA that opportunity to keep this game closer down towards the I think any team that plays USC wants to keep the scoring in and around the 20-point mark. If you keep USC scoring in and around the 20-point mark, you will be in a position to win the game at the end of the game if you're playing USC.
Yeah, and I think to SC's credit, we talked about the home road splits. SC has not played as well on the road as they have at home, but I don't know that the defensive performances have been that drastically different. Obviously, the fourth downs that they've given up at the end of games have happened on the road, but like the reason the SC lost the Maryland game is because they had a blocked field goal and Miller Moss threw essentially a pick six that allowed them to get in a position to where they were vulnerable for a meltdown. Right. The reason that they lost the Minnesota game, yes, they give up the 14 points in the fourth quarter, but like they had a chance to sort of put the game away on offense and they turned the ball over again. So those critical turnovers, save for the Penn State game, have not happened at home. So can they avoid the turnovers on Saturday? I think is going to be the big question, because if they do, then I absolutely like SC's chances to win the game. If they don't, then they're going to need to overcome that some way. And that's forcing turnovers of their own. So we'll see. All right, let's get to some over-under.
So you're going over.
I'm going to do an under here.
All right, Alicia, what's your first over-under of the week? What do you got?
All right, we're going 2.5 sacks for USC's defense, with stating it outright right now. 2.5 sacks is the over, because sacks can be at the half. So whatever.
We talked about this last. The team sacks cannot be halves.
Oh, right.
Individual sacks can be halves.
Okay, I'm done. Yes. Okay. 2.5 sacks for USC's defense. UCLA is allowing 2.8 per game. That's 28 this season. They've given up 8 sacks in their last 3 games. But USC had 2 sacks against Nebraska, continues to be in a space where they can't really get pressure. But also, eventually it feels like the dam is going to burst. And what I've seen from UCLA's offensive line makes me wonder if this could be the game where the dam bursts. This is the Rutgers. So 2.5 sacks feels very high, but whatever. I've got nothing to lose.
What have I said? I've said that I will choose under here, anything sack related, until they prove otherwise. Even if I had a hunch, I'd be taking the under here. So give me the under.
Okay.
Under on 2.5 sacks for USC's defense. My first over-under is a 133.5 Woody Marks yards from scrimmage. 133.5. And maybe you're going, that seems low, Michael. It could be. He had 142 against Rutgers, 149 against UW, 182, a season high, and the most he's ever had against an FBS opponent, against Nebraska. Why is the line at 133.5? That's because UCLA is 4th in the Big Ten in rush defense, allowing 98.6 yards per game. They have not allowed a team to rush for more than 4.6 yards per carry all season. Only Oregon has eclipsed the 150 rushing yards mark as a team. They don't give up a lot of rushing yards. It is the Big Ten. That's sort of the name of the game in the Big Ten. But alas, they just don't do it. So, again, this is all yards from scrimmage. So Woody Marks could get this in the passing game, which we know that he has the ability to do that. So 133.5 Woody Marks yards from scrimmage.
I love Woody Marks. I think he is outstanding. He has become one of my favorite Trojans in a long time, joining a long line now of transfer running backs who have just stolen my heart year after year. And every year I think that they can't possibly get another running back who can with them like this, and then here comes Woody Marks. So he's amazing. Having said that, I am taking the under here. And it is specifically because UCLA does have a good rushing defense. UCLA, I think, will be focused very heavily on trying to limit the damage that Woody Marks is able to do. We've been seeing a little bit more of Quentin Joyner in weeks. I think we might see a little bit more of him again. And then also just in any game, there's always the possibility that USC tries to throw it around a little bit more. And obviously Woody Marks might pick up a bunch of yards as a receiving option, and then I'd lose this. But if I lose this, frankly, I won't be that mad. So taking the under.
All right. You'll take the under on 133.5. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair given that what UCLA has held teams to. Let's go to your second over-under. What do you got?
99.9 all-purpose yards for TJ Harden, the UCLA running back. He's had more than 100 all-purpose yards in each of his last three games, I believe. His PFF grade on the year as a runner is 68.7. That's 63rd in the Big Ten. Not great. But his receiving grade, as I mentioned before, is 87.2, which is first in the Big Ten among running backs, sixth nationally among running backs. USC has not always done the greatest job of limiting the danger man of a particular offense, especially when they're an all-purpose guy. So 100 all-purpose yards for TJ Harden.
I'm going to take the under. I think it's just a little bit high. A little bit. Not by much, but I'm going to take the under. I think he stays, under 100 yards. If he, I was talking to Jake about the bellwether. If he gets over 100, that could be a bellwether for UCLA, having a really good chance to get the win on Saturday. My second over-under is 1.5 Jaden Mayava turnovers. He had 2 against Nebraska last week. We talked about it before. Could have been more, but it wasn't, as he got the bounces to go their way. UCLA has forced 2 interceptions in each of the last 3 games. And for context, last year at UNLV, Jaden Mayava had 13 turnovers in 13 games. So won a game. He had 2 in his first game as a Trojan. First start as a Trojan, but 1.5 is the line. What do you got?
Yeah, I would love to take the under on this, but again, this is a UCLA offense that will pick the ball out of the air if it's available to them. We saw Jaden Mayava in the Nebraska game make some throws that were a bit risky, and we saw USC have a lot of luck in that game, and still ended up with 2 turnovers. My gut is telling me that there will be 2 turnovers in this game. I don't know if Jaden Mayava will be responsible for both of them, but chances are he is, even if it's just an interception and one of those, scrambling out of the pocket fumble kind of things, which in the grand scheme of things, I think USC can overcome. But even if it's just that, I just think the likelihood is that there will be a couple turnovers here. So taking that over.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't think that's a bad pick there, especially considering UCLA has been forcing turnovers the last few weeks, which has been a big part of why their defense has gotten better. As Jake said, they've had way more havoc plays of late. What's your last over-under again?
All right, my last one is 3.5 Jacoby Lane catches.
Okay.
He barely played last week, didn't have a catch. But we've seen him have multiple games with 3 catches. We've seen him have even bigger games than that. I was sort of trying to think of, we talked about earlier in the season about USC's receiving corps sort of potentially being in a position where every game is somebody else's game. So Nebraska was the Deuce Robinson game. They've had the Mekhi Lemon game. We've had the Lake McCree game. We've had the Jacoby Lane game. We've had the Kyron Hudson game. All of those kinds of things. So they're sort of cycling through. Now, I was tempted to put Kyron Hudson. Is this going to be the Kyron Hudson game? But I feel like he's just a little bit more stably like normal. He's never completely absent, and he's never completely taken over.
Right.
But it feels like it's been a while since Jacoby Lane took over.
Yeah.
So does he respond to last week's very limited play? and ball out.
I think it would be great if that's the case. I'd like to see more of an impact from SC's receivers, whether it be Jacoby Lane or Deuce Robinson or Kyron Hudson. Kyron Hudson has a great game. Kyle Ford has a great game.
Mm-hmm.
We know that he loves playing this game because he's played it a bunch. But I'm going to take the under. Multiple reasons. A, we just haven't seen him had a big impact in weeks now. And B, if the optimal version of the Jaden Maiava offense is what SC was doing in the second half against UCLA, let's just say that it is. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but let's just say that that's what it is. I don't know that throwing the ball to Jacoby Lane a lot of the time is going to be in the cards there, because SC was sort of at its best in the second half when they were throwing a lot of short stuff, a lot of screens, getting the ball out to the perimeter, making simple reads for Jaden Maiava. It wasn't a lot of challenging the secondary deep kind of things or challenging in the mid-range. We talked about it. The three longest plays in the second half through the air was the touchdown to Deuce Robinson, which is like a crosser corner thing. That was like 20 yards down, 15 yards downfield, maybe. Not a long, deep shot. There was the corner route jump ball to Kyron Hudson. That was like 20 yards. And then there was a really long screen to Zachariah Branch. So everything else was screen and short stuff. And I don't know that Jacoby Lane is an impact player in the screen and short stuff. So I'm going to take the under.
All right. And I think USC is going to try and push down the field a little more. So
they might.
But
they certainly might.
I think there's every chance that he goes catchless again in this game. So we will see.
Yeah. All right. My last over-under for you is 49.5 UCLA third down conversion rates. USC's third down conversion rate against UCLA's defense. Elise, I talked about it with Jake. This third down defense for UCLA. Good God, it's not good. They're 134th in FBS, dead last in third down conversion defense, allowing conversions on 51.9% of their plays. The only team in the country that's over 50%. We've talked about it ad nauseum this year. CFB stats only goes to back to 2016 now. In that time frame, not a single Big Ten defense has been over 50%. The last 2 weeks, though, UCLA held Iowa and Washington to a combined 36.8%. So they've been better the last 2 weeks. SC, on the flip side, 17th in the country and 4th in the Big Ten at 46.8% on third downs. They've been over 50% in half of their games, 5 of 10. But on the road, they've only done it twice, Minnesota and Washington, 2 games in which they lost, obviously. So 49.5. Can SC get to 50%, essentially?
It's funny because UCLA is basically the reverse USC.
Yeah.
Because their third down defense is god-awful, but they're 6th nationally in fourth down defense, only allowing 30%. Now, to be fair, they've only faced 10. Mm-hmm. They've given up 3 of 10, but that's
don't got to face a lot when you give up.
Don't got to face a lot when you give up a lot. Yeah, but but still, it is pretty funny. I think that USC will. I'm taking the over here, be up above 50%, in part because I think that one of the big things that I like about Jaden Maiava is he does give you a little bit of that improvisation potential on third down.
Sure.
Makes the defense have to guess a little bit more on third down, is a threat to run on third down if it's third and short. You create conflicts for the defense in third and short where USC could genuinely do one of those triple option kind of deals where is it going to be up the middle to Marks? Is it going to be a keeper for Maiava? Is it going to be a pitch to a running back on a jet sweep or something? You know, there's a million things that USC can do with Jaden Maiava that's different, that provides more question marks for the opposing defense. So I like USC that was already a good third down team
Mm-hmm.
to be pretty good in this game.
I looked it up. Jane Mayava last year had 13 carries on third downs at UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
6 of them were first downs.
That's pretty good.
This is where I really wish that you could parse out the sacks.
Yes.
Because I like.
How many of those were sacks?
I don't know. But if it's possible, 10 of them were sacks and all of them were first down scrambles. I don't know. I don't know. But he had more first downs on third down carries with 6 of his 16 rushes. Again, those could be sacks. On third downs. On second down, 4 of 20, and on first down, 5 of 35. So yeah, most of his first down runs came on third down last year. So I think that checks out that he could give you an extra wrinkle there. So taking the over sort of makes sense. It's a big week for you because you are 10 games back in over under, so you need a big week. We've never seen anyone go 6-0 in our little game between us.
Why not start now?
But if there's a time,
hey,
this is it. Yeah. Let's go to the Vegas spread. It's at 5. SC as 5-point favorites on the road. The FEI projection we've talked about before. This is gospel when it comes to SC football. If nothing else, it says what the game played like, because a lot of those road games that SC lost, like the FEI projection against Maryland would have been right if they would have kicked the field goal and ended the game right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it was spiritually correct.
Yeah, spiritually correct, sure. But it's 35-22, which I think goes in line with what I was saying earlier. You play this game at LA High, and I don't know, maybe Belmont High, whatever you want. It's 35-22. Seems right. Seems reasonable. What's halfway? Fairfax, maybe? Maybe Fairfax.
You're the geography guy. I've got no clue.
Yeah, Fairfax is closer to the halfway. The first two are more downtown, but Fairfax I think would work. All right, what's your score prediction?
I am going with 24-20. Again, you will have to pry the 20-point defense out of my cold, dead fingers. I will just be, from here on out, predicting 20 points for the opposition.
Looking forward to your Notre Dame prediction.
Yeah. I'm going 24 points for USC because I do trust FEI. I do think FEI has a good sense of what this USC team should be. But I also watch this USC team, and I know that there will always be a couple moments where they shoot themselves in the foot when they have an opportunity to put their foot on the gas, and that will keep the game much closer than it should be.
Sure.
And go to an end of game situation where the game is in the balance in the final minute. I can just guarantee you that the game will be in the balance in the final minute. So whether that's UCLA having the ball and needing a touchdown to beat USC, or USC being, down a couple and needing a touchdown to win, or whatever it is, it just will be in the final minute. 24-20 is my feeling.
All right. 24-20 SC.
Yes, SC.
Yeah. Okay, I am going to go with something similar. 21-17. Sports Geek 91 in the chat said turnovers, kicking. I feel a low scoring game with field position. Yeah, I sort of agree. I sort of agree.
And maybe that's USC's secret weapon. Maybe the difference in this game is Eddie Splicki.
Yeah, could be. All right, Alicia, let's go to the mailbag, shall we?
We shall.
You've got mail.
Big shout out to Tribune to Troy for joining the Rot Club. Welcome
to the club.
Welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us in the Rot Supporters Club, if you will. You got a chat question from Rama Murdy. Is there advantage for SC since Danton Lynn is familiar with Ethan Garbers and how to defend him?
This is always a question I have with familiarity of coaches, because how much self-scouting did UCLA do, I guess, is the question.
Sure.
Did Danton Lynn put a lot of time and effort into observing Ethan Garbers, specifically in the sense of knowing how to defend Ethan Garbers.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I think there is a slight advantage there because just any sort of familiarity with the quarterback that you would have seen in practice is better than none. At the same time, this is not the same offense that Danton Lynn was experiencing Ethan Garbers playing in. This is Eric Bieniemy, who is not coached, not been an offensive coordinator in college in a long, long time, and is bringing something very different to the table.
Right.
So there is advantage. Is it a sizable one that makes a significant difference in this game relative to what Danton Lynn would already learn from just watching tape? I'm not going to go there quite, but it certainly doesn't hurt.
I think if there's anything Danton Lynn can get from the Ethan Garbers thing, it's he doesn't like rolling to the right and throwing. He doesn't, like little tendencies like that, which I think are things you'd pick up on film anyways. Yeah. I can't imagine that there's really a lot of stuff there, especially when I think the inverse is considerably more true. I think UCLA probably has more of a sense of what to expect with SC's defense because Danton Lynn is calling it. Yeah. This is a different coaching staff, like you mentioned, but Deshaun Foster was already on staff. He has been around to see Danton Lynn and worked alongside Danton Lynn before. I think that any benefit that Danton Lynn could get, UCLA could get
a wash,
with the inverse. Yeah, if anything, it's a wash. Ron Murray also says in a rivalry game like this, if you win the coin toss, do you want the ball first or to go on defense first? I think you take the ball and try to score.
My philosophy is always I want the ball to start the second half.
Yes.
So I would always go on defense first, regardless of whether it's a rivalry game or not.
Yeah.
But
that's not Lincoln Riley's philosophy.
No, that's not his philosophy. So I believe he would tell you that he would take the ball first and go and try to score.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I give me the ball to start the second half. It's the best feeling in the world when
knowing you get
there's
the ball
3 minutes to go in the second half and you got the ball and you're like, wait a minute, I can get 2 drives here.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. Yeah, that's
nice.
The best feeling. We got a couple emails from Tony. He's from Denora, PA, by the way.
Are you sure?
I think so. First one says, Alicia, Michael, this is Tony from Denora, PA. I believe we got the better of the 2 quarterbacks. If you have 2 recruits with abilities that are close to each other, then you bring in the one that wants to be a Trojan. Son Longstreet wants to be a Trojan. I never got that feeling with Juju. Now, I don't have a problem with him going on his visits as part of the process, but when you never stop and continue this late in the process, that tells me you never wanted to be a Trojan. P.S. Lincoln, keep bringing in young men from Cali.
Yeah, I agree with Tony in that, Juju Lewis taking visits and doing the process was not my issue with Juju Lewis. It was the back and forth of, is he going to cancel his visits? Is he going to go to Colorado? Is he not going to go to Colorado? Like, it was more just like the chatter behind the scenes and under the surface with everything like that. For me, like Tony said, if you have 2 recruits with relatively close abilities, which Longstreet and Lewis are almost neck and neck in terms of like the ratings, then for me, I would take the local kid. Like,
right.
That I think there's value in the local kid who, especially at a quarterback. Quarterbacks will always play a special role in any recruiting class. Obviously, you would rather have your quarterback committed much earlier in the cycle so that he can be the centerpiece of your class. But still, either way, having a local centerpiece of your recruiting class who will presumably be recruiting the guys around him will help your local recruiting, which is something USC needs help with. So, I think in addition to Longstreet, committing to USC, wanting to go to USC, we'll see if that sticks, but you never know. Yeah. And all of that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this.
I've said ad nauseum that like I don't care where SC is getting recruits from. If you win and you get good recruits, they could be from Mars for all I care. At the same time, if you ideally you want to pick the local kid in a vacuum, because it's more likely that could parlay into further guys from Centennial, right? Like,
Yeah.
And we've talked about before that, like, if you could pick 5 high schools that you want to corner the market on, Centennial is one of those 5.
And it's not just Centennial either, because every region will have their sort of interconnected web of guys who just know each other because you go to the same regional camps, you play in the same regional 7-on-7 team, or
plus there's so much transferring now.
Yeah, everyone's transferring, so everyone's throwing together or doing all sorts of things. Yeah, it's just there is an advantage to having the local connection. Yeah. It's not the end all be all, but it is an advantage.
Yeah, and when I say they're transferring, I mean legally. Allegedly,
okay,
legally,
Mr. Narbonne.
Allegedly,
yeah.
Beat Birmingham. That's all I'm gonna say. Second email from Tony. This is Tony from Denora, PA. Oh, by the way, really quick, one other thought. This is not, picking at Tony at all. This is just this is a ironic thing to me in general. The idea of oh, I don't like this guy because he wasn't committed to us. I love this dude who wasn't committed to the other school. You know what I mean?
Who just flipped from the other school. Yeah.
like there is this weird irony of
in recruiting,
I want a truthful man that is committed to where he wants to go. That's why I picked this dude who cheated on somebody else. You know what I mean? It is funny.
This is the case with recruiting always. It's if they're your guy and they sign with you, all ills are taken.
He's our asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Tony says, Alicia, Michael, this is Tony from Denora, PA. Hey, I'm watching your podcast and I have an opinion on Miller Moss's 9 games starting. I don't believe Lincoln put Miller in the best position to succeed. I used to be a big fan of Washington back in the day, and I pulled my allegiance since then because I got so fed up with Snyder. By the way, Washington football team.
Yeah.
I read Washington
now
football and I thought Huskies. I didn't think.
Yeah.
Got so fed up with Dan Snyder. That's a story for another day. Back to doesn't need to be a story. We all know Dan Snyder sucks. Absolutely sucks. When Joe Gibbs was coaching the team, the one thing he did was make adjustments when he saw the offense bogged down. He won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. He knew each quarterback's strength and he set up the game plan to fit them. He didn't try to jam them into his system. I don't believe I don't believe Lincoln did this with Miller. Instead of adjusting his offense to fit Miller, he tried to fit it into his offense. Great coaches learn to adjust their game plan for the better of the team. Fight on, Tony. Yeah, I agree. The one area where I think I might disagree is if it was truly the case where he just threw Miller in there and then didn't play to his strengths completely, then I think we would have seen more running. And if anything, I think there could have been more. Like we talked about before, obviously Miller Moss is not your prototypical mobile quarterback. Obviously, I'm not arguing that. I just think that you could have run a zone read or 2 per game, and he could have been at least serviceable, right? And we didn't see enough of that. So that's an instance where I think Lincoln maybe sort of changed his game plan too much. But overall, I think that. Yeah, I think there were maybe a little bit too many deep shots, even if there weren't as many as there were in the first quarter of the Nebraska game. We know that's not his strength.
Yeah, I think this is all very difficult to pin down to because sometimes it's I wish, and I'm never going to get this insight because no one will give me this insight, but it would be really nice to sort of sit down with Lincoln Riley and ask him okay, how much of any given play call is your responsibility and the quarterback's responsibility, and and a reaction to the defense? Because was Lincoln Riley not calling run plays because he was doing a million other things or whatever? Was he not having zone reads for Miller Moss or those options on any play,
right?
And just sort of limiting him to what they were running, or
was Miller just always taking the
other option? Was Miller in an RPO's situation always just choosing to throw? Was it in a read option kind of situation? Was he just always like it was going to be a rare occasion that he would see a perfect look that would tell him that I'm going to keep this and run, which he did a few times, and to great success, by the way. But like
maybe that's why he had such success on those 2 or 3 times that he did.
Because it was so beyond, And I mean, it could be just one of those things where like Jaden Mayava, because of his running ability, is probably far more willing to pull it.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't need to see the Reed defender completely buying into the running back in order to go. He just needs one little turn of the foot or one little turn of the hip or whatever it is that he's looking for.
That TD last week was a prime example.
Yeah.
Like, the D end wasn't out of position completely. Like he found a way to still take advantage of where the guy was.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So how much of that now? I'm not putting this all on Miller Moss, because I think if Lincoln Riley really wanted the run game to be a bigger feature of USC's offense, then he would have coached that into Miller or insisted upon it.
Right.
I don't think Miller had that much control over the offense, but I do think there are those little tweaks that can't come with just who it is that's running the offense. Mm-hmm. In any case, I do think that that clearly Jaden Mayava's skill set is more suited to a Lincoln Riley offense. Miller Moss's skill set was never perfect for this offense, but it would have been nice to see Lincoln lean more on a traditional run game if that's what was needed to take pressure off of Miller and set him up more for success.
Yeah.
It's just hard to tell exactly where that line is.
Yeah. Discord message we got from Samuel, and this came a couple weeks ago. Our apologies for not getting to this sooner, but with the way things have gone the last few years for SC, would you take Kyle Whittingham as head coach over Lincoln Riley? I think that the spirit of this is in a vacuum in which you could do that, right?
Well, the spirit of this where Kyle Whittingham isn't inevitably retiring within the next year. Yeah. So, that's part of the equation. I think that right now, based on all available data, I think you'd be crazy not to take Kyle Whittingham at some point. Like, it would have been really, really, really interesting to see what Kyle Whittingham could have done with USC's recruiting base, with USC's talent level. My suspicion on Kyle Whittingham is that he would have been rather good, but I don't know if we've seen enough from Kyle Whittingham to suggest that he definitely would have come into USC and won a national title.
Yeah.
He probably would have a better record in his first 3 years than Lincoln Riley has, because short of catastrophic quarterback injuries,
sure,
Utah is generally a pretty good team. Like, they're pretty well coached, pretty well put together.
I'm so torn on this answering this because I think that Kyle Whittingham would, if you plug him in this season, I think they find a way to get at least a couple of those 4th down stops or something, or they finish off those drives on offense just by being more, for lack of a better way to say that, more mentally tough or something like that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think Kyle Whittingham teams generally have been pretty damn tough. And
they have a lot of resolve.
Yeah, that's something that USC would like to see more of.
Yeah. Like a hair in my face or something. I hope it's not like a spider. That would be
probably a Jesse hair.
I don't know. So yeah, like I think that it would be better in that sense. Would the overall ceiling be better? I don't know that that's the case. I think that Kyle Whittingham actually absolutely could win at SC. I'm a full believer that literally any coach could win a national championship at USC. I think Ed Ogeron could have won a national championship at SC because he won one at LSU, and we know that Ed Ogeron is not a good head coach, right? So in that sense, when I say that I think the ceiling might be in the optimal Lincoln Riley era and optimal Kyle Whittingham era, I think the Lincoln Riley ceiling is a little bit higher because of what you could do on offense, theoretically, right?
Yes.
But obviously, I think that Kyle Whittingham just would have the team so much more fundamentally sound, and I think that would result in a better record the last 2 seasons. Absolutely.
But then again, Kyle Whittingham wouldn't have brought Caleb Williams with him.
Well,
so
okay,
what would that record be? Like,
this
again,
is the
it's
other
very
thing.
difficult.
You talk about Lincoln Riley screwing up the quarterback decision this year, right? Like, if that's where you are with Lincoln Riley and the quarterback situation, buddy, do I have something to tell you about Kyle Whittingham's quarterback situation? Cam Rising has been great when he's healthy, and he's beaten SC a million times, and SC could call him daddy and all those things, rightfully so. And so this is not a Cam Rising take. But outside of Cam Rising and outside of Tyler Huntley was very good. I have an affinity for my hero, Troy Williams. Go Narbonne. But the quarterback play at Utah is like infamous for not being good.
Yeah.
Especially when they have to go to a plan B of any sense, which he's had to do last 2 years. And I think that you can make the valid argument that the reason that Utah should have walked into the Big 12 and ran that conference.
Yeah. But they don't. The quarterback situation was a dumpster fire.
2 straight seasons, he put all his eggs in the basket,
Cam Rising basket
of a guy who we know is injury prone.
Right. But having said that, like on Witt's side here, I think it is significantly easier to bring quality quarterback play to USC in Los Angeles than it is to bring to Utah in Salt Lake City. That's where the natural recruiting advantages that USC has had, certainly NIL advantages that USC would have for him, could be pretty significant. You would potentially, but this is again a very stylistic question because, I guess the question is, we could reframe this is, with the way that things have gone the last few years for USC, would you rather take the defense-minded head coach or the offense-minded head coach? And at this point, I would take the defense-minded head coach.
The answer to that is always going to be what is not good now.
Yes.
And then you're going to take that, right?
Well, yeah, but my philosophy there is, in my opinion, I think that a defense-minded head coach that's good at running their defense.
Yeah. More so, you take when people are not happy, they're going to take the opposite of whatever you have. That's what I mean.
But even aside from all of that, my thinking is, if your defense-minded head coach was a good defense coordinator and knows what they're doing, then you'll have a stable defense. And having a stable defense is essential to winning consistently. Then your offense is a reflection of the offensive coordinator that you bring in to run your offense and call your plays and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it is easier to find high-powered offensive coordinators that you can look at and know for sure that they're going to be good than it is the inverse.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would do. I think USC would have no problem finding an offensive coordinator to pair with a Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
Compared to a defensive coordinator to pair with a Lincoln Riley.
Solving Iowa's bad offense seems like an easier task than solving SC's bad defense.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I'm talking about from last year, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, SC's defense is much better this year. So obviously, but yeah, I get you there. That I think the staff, a great staff to counterbalance Kyle Whittingham's faults, would probably have more likelihood of success. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to wrap things up there. We'll be back Saturday, late, 7:30 on NBC, SC, and UCLA from the Rose Bowl. Big thanks to Jake for coming on, as always. Jake's our buddy. We love him. We'll be over at his place later tonight to record a What's Bruin show.
Go check out the What's Bruin show when we're on it. Give them a positive review because they are our friends and we love them. And if you love us, you'll give us a 5-star review. Yeah. And if you love us, you'll give our friends over at the What's Bruin Show.
Even
a
though they
5-star
can suck
review.
it. Yeah.
Even though they can suck it. Actually, give them a 5-star review, and that 5-star review just needs to read, suck at What's Bruin Show.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Just saying.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back Saturday. Until then, we'll see you. Thanks for everybody giving us your time and all that. I don't know where I'm going with this. See ya.
See ya.
All right.